Hey, Rick from DreamSideOut again. Another day of building the box truck. I'm finishing out the bed structure today and a few other things, so I'll take you through that. If you have panels like this cut at a place like Home Depot that has a panel saw, you can plan ahead, have the cuts made there, and all of my other material is just linear material that I can cut by hand, and I'm going to use hand tools. That's one of my goals in this build, is to see how much I can do with just hand tools and no power tools whatsoever, because that's one of the issues when you do a van build. The last time I had a shop available with all kinds of power tools in it, and I had anything I needed. I just go mill something out right quick. Well, this time I want to see if I can do a really decent job with minimal power tools. I should be able to. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm going to run into a few places where I'll probably have to have something ripped on a table saw or something, but we'll see. Okay, this piece of plywood is just it's called Sandy. It's a multiple ply, really tightly applied board. I think it's about, it looks like 5/8 or slightly, but it's pretty strong and dense. It's got a few blows in it. See, there's one there, but it's pretty good. I'm going to just stain it and use it. It's not attached to anything right now. I had the cuts done at Home Depot just on their panel saw. I don't have a table saw available to use. Most of my build is going to be done strictly with hand tools, and I think you can get away with doing a really good build just with hand tools for most of it. So using my hand square, I make a line all the way around the board. Like so. Then set it in a secure place. Start into your cut, and when you're cutting cross, you use the thin blades, and I just start, and this saw pulls instead of pushes. Unlike European saws, you just start in very carefully, and it's so easy. These things are so sharp, that blade just falls right through the wood. And as you can see, I'm already making progress. I'm not even putting any pressure on there. I'm just kind of pulling it through. Following the line. Taking my time. Now you'll see a lot of master carpenters using the saw this way instead, because if you're doing finish work, it pulls it doesn't pull up a chip, it'll cut downwards. That's one of the reasons for the handle like this. So you can use it this way too. But there's some wisdom behind this long handle. It's mostly made for standing up and pulling the blade. Unlike European saws. So I just go all the way around it. That way I won't throw a big chip. Make a nice neat cut. Kind of meditative, actually. still. Okay, so we're looking at the end of the bed faceboard here, and this is a ledge piece. It's just a 2x4. I use 2x4s because they're cheap, easy to work with, and you know it's overkill for structure, obviously, but it's just easy to work with. And one of the things I like about it is the thickness of the 2x4, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot some screws in to here to the back of the faceboard. So I grab that faceboard from behind and it's blind screwed. That way there's no screw holes showing in the front. And it'll make a nicer finished piece that way. But these screws are not quite exactly the right length. So I drew a line right there. And what I'm going to do is countersink them a little bit with my drill. See, I put a piece of tape right there so that I'll only drill that deep before I shoot the screws in. See, and I can have my pillows stacked over there. I can open that up if I need to get at things. I don't have to get to things under the bed very often. It's mostly a storage space, but I'm going to put my tools, a lot of my extra parts that I might need on the van, fasteners and things like that, and other junk, basically, that I don't need all the time. And the other thing is I'm going to have a partition. I stopped it out right here so that there's a partition that will separate this side and keep the junk from falling onto my electrical equipment. Now let me explain the structure of my bed here. I think I showed you most of the construction process. I took this piece of plywood. This is just 11/32, I think, or 5/8. Also, to point out, this piece here is tied to the wall. The two end slats are screwed into the ledge and screwed in over here. So you've got a structural, set up here that this isn't going to go anywhere. This will tie that in, keep it from going out. And the only part left is to keep the bottoms from bucking either way. And then I think it's pretty structurally sound. I think it'll take a lot of abuse and it won't really go anywhere. And also that faceboard, being as sturdy as it is, will take a lot of abuse. If I hit the brakes and there's something loose in here and it goes flying forward, it'll be protected. That's one of the things about living in a vehicle. You got to always think about the crash load on stuff. What's going to go flying forward, and how much abuse can everything take when you hit the brakes really hard. Okay, so I'm going to glue and then screw that piece onto the edge here. And for this kind of finish work, I use like a tight bond wood glue. I don't use Gorilla Glue for this kind of thing, because Gorilla Glue kind of, well, here's what happens with Gorilla Glue. It has this nasty tendency to foam out at the seams. You don't want that with finish work. You want to have a nice glue joint, but you don't want that much glue oozing. So what I need to do is cut 4 pieces that are approximately the length of that 2x4 right there. And I have 3 real expensive oak planks here of each one's a different length. So here's a question for you. Which one do I use to cut the first piece out of? The short one, the middle one, or the long one? Let's hear your answers. The best board to cut from first is always the shortest board. If you have to cut a piece that's the length of that, go cut it from the shortest board first, and then cut the next one from the next shortest board, and so on. And by doing so, you will save material. Okay, here's the bed as it looks now. I put a coat of stain and varnish on it. I wish I had not put stain on it because it kind of made the wood look a little splotchy. I'm going to sand it out and try to do a better job, but I want that panel to look decent. I may add a couple of vertical accents there, vertical pieces to kind of echo the door going in the front, just to break up that surface since it does look splotchy. But anyway, the way this is constructed is I'm going to make use of a lot of vertical pieces like this because I have this rail to tie into, and I'm going to use some screws, some countersunk screws to tie in vertical pieces, and that way I can hang stuff on it and other things. For instance, on this one, I'm gonna mount lights. I may mount my meter somewhere, either on that or somewhere close to it. And it's interesting that this extrusion came right out. It's exactly the same depth as this rail, so I can run a board right up to there. I can't put screws into here because they'll stick out. See, these are the screws coming in from my solar panels right there. And lo and behold, this is the frustration of kind of designing things one-off without doing tons of planning. The screw to hold my solar panel on landed right there where I needed to put a vertical support. Luckily, I missed the screw, but I had to take the screw out to get this piece in, because you see it's tied in down here, and that's all fit around there and fits at the bottom. So when this is put in, it stops the bed frame from coming out this way. And then I have stops on the inside to keep it from going that direction, so that if anything slides along the floor and bangs into it, it'll stop right there. And that's a pretty solid piece of plywood, so it should take some abuse. And then I ended up putting a nice an oak finish on here, because I'm going to crawl over this a lot. I'm going to eventually have custom cushions put in here, 3 of them, so I can stack them up and then remove these when I need to get in there and get at my stuff. Still thinking of a sliding door, because I want a rigid cover. I want to be able to lean back against it. I want to close that door and, you know, have pillows up against it, and then I can kind of lounge in there. And I'm going to have a light here, a light here, a light here, and a light there, and possibly some lights back there too. The next part of this project to finish this area out is I'm going to put 2 more vertical supports on each end. 1 in the corner, 1 in the center. And the vertical supports are going to come up about a foot from the roof, out about right where this, well, probably about halfway, the halfway distance between the beds. So that'll make a deep, very deep shelf storage place to put all my hiking gear, other bedding and blankets and things like that I might need.